Yeah, first of all, thanks for having me, Brad, and I really appreciate it. I'm going to go through a little bit about who I am, and you're probably all thinking, like, who is this guy? Why is he telling us how to do our job, sort of thing. So hopefully I can go into a little bit of detail about myself and sort of like my journey as a nightclub photographer and where it's taken me to. And then what I wanted to do is go and look at different sections of what I believe a nightclub photographer will do. So we'll look at things like the equipment that's required, and I'll show you the equipment that I would take with me on a typical night out. Also look at the settings, so the parameters that we should be using in different scenarios. And in order to do that, I'm going to give examples of pictures that I've previously taken, and I'm going to ask you guys, I'm going to say, in this situation, what settings would you use here, what settings, and you're already going to know the answer because you do it day in, day out. And then we'll look into the personal aspects of being a nightlife photographer, because it's a very challenging environment. Most people you come across intoxicated, having the time of their life, the energy is really super ramped, and you're at work. So, you know, there's a little bit of your personal brand that has to be involved in it. And then we'll look at the post-production side of it, which is, you know, as a skilled photographer, one of the best things you can possibly do is become faster at doing what you do. So when we look at post-production, how can we generate more money? Well, that's do the process quicker. So if we can save time in post-production so we can go out and shoot more images, that's going to make us far more efficient in terms of being a photographer, especially a nightlife photographer. So going into sort of being a nightlife photographer, my personal opinion is being a nightlife photographer is one of the most technically challenging genres of photography you can possibly ever take. Now, I've gone off and shot advertising campaigns for mobile phones. I've done stuff for trainer companies. They're all a piece of piss. You control all of the factors in those scenarios, whereas in a nightclub, you have no control over anything. So you have to be technically adept at what you do with your camera. So in this room are probably some of the most skilled photographers I will come across on a day-to-day basis. And you should really take that as a massive accolade. It's a real skill to hone. And I think going off into your career, if you can master this, you'll be able to shoot in any scenario. Like someone lands a commission on your desk, you look at where Licklist is going in terms of shooting weddings, portraits, and you can do all that. That's all a walk in the park because you can do nightlife stuff, which is great. It's an amazing entry point for a photographer. So most people will be a music fan. You know, when you get into photography, you'll want to try to align those two passions. So you say, hey, do you know what? I'm going to go shoot rock bands, or I'm going to go shoot in clubs. And you know, it's a great entry point for photographers. It's an amazing opportunity to network. I wouldn't be where I am today if I wasn't out in nightclubs, you know, networking with promoters and venue owners and people like that. And the thing is, with people in those scenarios, they'll always know other people in similar scenarios. So there's so much opportunity to bring in more business to the Licklist family. And as you can see, now you're going to start facilitating shooting in other scenarios. There's so much opportunity out there for you. It's great for your confidence. I'm probably one of the shyest people you'll ever meet. I'm really nervous, I'm a bit twitchy, but sort of over the years, being a nightclub photographer has really helped me with my confidence, because you've got to be, like, you have to be bubbly and smiley and engaging people. Because if you walk around miserable, no one's going to want to sort of engage with you and give you sort of those money shots. Again, like I said, it's great if you like music. What's the last one? Yeah, I'm trying to think. Yeah, and then one of the other things I wanted to talk about as nightlife photographers is understanding our purpose. Now, we all may think we're going to turn up to shoot the most technically amazing picture. Of course we want to do that, because as artists and photographers, that's really important for us to stick our personal stamp on it. But our purpose as photographers shooting nightlife is marketing and promotion. We want people to come back to those venues because they're exciting, because they're engaging, because there's attractive people there. Our job is to capture that, to bring new traffic back into those environments so we can continue to go back and shoot. And again, that's going to create more opportunities and develop the industry as a whole. So who the fuck is Luke Curtis? To start off with, there's a club over in Ipswich which is called Unit 17, and I started off there back in 2014, and I started shooting the events. And these are some of my pictures. I highly recommend go onto their Facebook page, go back a few years and look at some of my earlier pictures. They are gash. They are the worst pictures you will ever come across ever. And over time, being in that environment, shooting those clubs, I learned some amazing skills. And they have facilitated me going off into my career to do some amazing things. I've met some of my heroes. This is me shooting Carl Cox. I was flown over to Ibiza to shoot a party. It was the first time he played on the island since closing space, which is an amazing opportunity as a music fan for me to go. I shot a couple of covers for DJ Mag, as well as I've now left DJ Mag. I work with Mix Mag and Time Out now, so I shoot in major publications. I got work in the Standard last night. I shot this campaign for HTC, and the list goes on. And over the years, one of the things I've really championed is, you know, nightclub photography is one of the hardest skills you can possibly ever do as a photographer. And I've always championed it, and I've always been really outspoken about it, and people are just like, shut up, give it a rest. But what that's done later on is it's given me the opportunity to go and talk at places like the photography show. So the photography show is the leading photographic exhibition in the UK. I've spoken there 3 times over 2 years. One of them was specifically about being a nightclub photographer. Another one was being about video usage for social media. And another one was all about marketing. So how I've marketed myself as a photographer to go from, starting at Unit 17 to open up all these opportunities, and even to be recognized by the guys at Licklist to say, Luke, will you come in and talk to our photographers? That's amazing. I guarantee every single one of you in this room is probably a better photographer than I am. I guarantee it. So it's going to be really difficult for me to stand up and sort of show you the settings and stuff. And I want you all to recognize that and really value the opportunity that being, a sort of a club culture photographer offers you. I've recently just held an exhibition, and this is now turning into an internationally touring art exhibition, and it's focused on dance music photographers. So photographers that shoot in the nightlife environment. And normally event photographers are seen like the lowest denominators, he's an event photographer, he's not an advertising photographer, he's not shooting sports, he's not doing all that sort of stuff. We're down here, and what I'm trying to do is, make people, especially dance music photographers and music photographers, realize that what you're doing is the hardest possible thing that there is in terms of photography. So that's a little bit about who I am and kind of why I'm stood in front of you guys. And what I wanted to do next is look at the equipment side of what we should be doing as nightclub photographers. So I've broken it down really simply into 4 categories. Now the 4 categories we have is cameras. Cameras are a bit like jeans, or a bit like cars, or a bit like trainers. I'll only ever wear Adidas. I'll only ever drive a certain car. I'll only ever drink a certain cocktail. It doesn't really matter, it's a tool. Whether you're Nikon, Canon, Sony, it's a tool, it facilitates doing a job, okay? Whatever you feel comfortable shooting with, that's the tool you use. And some of those will be better equipped. So, using a full frame sensor as opposed to a 3/3 sensor will help in a nightclub environment. So there will be some perks to specific ranges, of course. So cameras, I won't go too much into that because it's an ongoing debate. Nikon versus Canon versus Sony, it just won't ever stop. But more importantly, when we look at lenses, so in terms of shooting in the environments we do, which are dark, our subjects are forever moving, the lighting changes all the time, our lenses need to be relatively good. And I'd strongly recommend looking at your primes. So these are always your fixed lenses, your 24s, 35s, 50s, 85s. They can shoot anything at 1.4. This is really techie now, I'm really sorry. It's just numbers. But they're the sort of lenses that allow us to do our job because they shoot really fast, they let an amazing amount of light in, they make it very easy to collect images. And with that as well is shooting in RAW. So hands up, we all shoot in RAW, hopefully. Yes. Has anyone got one of the t-shirt, the Fro Nose ones? Has anyone got one of them? Yes, my guy, good. So yeah, a bit about the lenses we should be using. So primes I would highly recommend, and over the years of my experience, I've kind of swapped my kit out to focusing on primes. And the reason I do that is it just makes it so much easier. And I'll go back to that whole process thing. If you can get faster and more efficient at what you're doing, you can earn more money. It's that simple, So if you can use a lens that's going to facilitate that, you can earn more money. So of course, if you have to build up, in the piggy bank before you can earn lenses like that, inevitably that will come back and pay dividends. So I'd highly recommend it. Of course, you can use zooms and they will have an advantage. You can zoom in and zoom out, but my recommendation would be primes. Who's shooting on primes? Yeah, good fans. Who's shooting on zooms? Yeah, I'm guessing 24s, 70s, 2.8s. They're all good lenses, they're absolutely fine. The thing to bear in mind is when you're using a zoom lens, that functionality, the mechanics inside the lens that allow you to zoom in and zoom out, they will then compromise your ability to be fast. So the further you can zoom in, the slower it's going to be because there's other mechanics going on inside the system. So it's all about working smarter, not harder. So I'd highly recommend those. And then we move into light. Now, light in a nightclub, you've got to bring it basically. You can rely on the ambience of the club, of course, but you're always going to need to bring sort of the ability to create light. So speed lights, hands up if we've got speed lights. Who's comfortable with using a speed light? Who gets it? Who sticks it in TTL? I'd stick it in TTL. I'm not gonna lie, it's all about that efficiency thing. If it's gonna allow me to get the results quicker than fiddling around with my camera, I will do it. And I've got no shame in saying that. A lot of photographers will say, oh yeah, you've got to shoot a manual, you've got to shoot this. The only thing that TTL will limit you doing is that post-production thing, because every time the camera's guessing the settings, that means there's gonna be a variable output. So when we're looking at using our presets in post-production, that variability can slow us down. So again, we're always looking about like efficiency through the whole process. So speed lights, you can use LED. I wouldn't recommend it. They're bulky, they're heavy, they take a lot of batteries and they slow you down. If you're using video, of course, I would highly recommend LED. And then there's things looking at diffusers. So one of the things I wanted to do is just take you through my kit bag and talk about some of the things. So if I hand this to you for 2 seconds while I grab my bag. Cheers, mate. Another good bit of advice is bags. You spend thousands of pounds on your camera equipment, and the amount of times I've seen nightclub photographers carrying their gear in a free bag that they got over a magazine, it's just ridiculous. Like, invest in a great bag. You know, oh yeah, I got it free with Amateur Photographer of the Month. Like, go and spend a couple of £100 on a bag because you've got this is your livelihood, you know, and you have to protect it at all times. So having a good bag is sturdy. This thing goes everywhere with me. Another really good tip, if you've got press accreditation or you shoot music and you've got a few tags and stuff like that, gear up your bag. Let people know what you do. Because when you're trying to get into a venue and you've got security guards in your face and you're just swinging around and giving the old Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtle, they let you through. It's social compliance. And again, it's all about that efficiency. It's getting you into that environment so you can shoot quicker, you can get what you need, and you can get out and potentially go to another venue. So these are little tricks that I've been, sort of learned over the years. In terms of the stuff I'll keep, obviously a camera, a grip. Now the only reason I have a grip is because it gives me extra battery. It means I've got more time to be out shooting pictures. I don't have to go off and change all of my equipment. The flash part that we were just talking about, we got to the diffuser section. So in terms of using your speed light, does anyone use any modifiers? Yeah, pardon? There you go, he said it. This is why he's up there in the list of all the top boys. So this is one of the things I used to use quite a bit. You can pick them up on eBay for quite cheap. What this is basically, it's really difficult to move around in a club, of course, but what this will do is this basically creates a softer light. So when I used to do sort of like a lot of that style of photography, I'd use one of these all the time. And the reason I would do this is, without boring you to death, in terms of physics of light, the smaller the light source in relation to the subject, the harder the light you'll create. Now, if we're looking at a speed light, for instance, if we look at the surface area of these two items, this might be teaching you all to suck eggs, so if I am, tell me to shut up and I'll pass on. But if you look at that as a surface area, compared to this as a surface area, this is always going to produce a bigger light source, which therefore is going to be more flattering. Now, in the environments that we're shooting in, we're trying to make people look sexy, trying to make them look exciting and attractive. That's always going to give us the results we want. So it's well worth having things like that in your bag. It'll also cover, I've said something really bad, haven't I? Good man. So yeah, so in terms of diffusers, they're the things that we're looking at and they're very useful. Does anyone ever use any of those? Yeah? Good man. And you can get some with a ring shape as well. So what they'll do is they'll disperse the light in a ring shape, and then what you'll get is that very classic like ring light look in the eye. It's quite a popular look sort of in Europe, so you can also do that. Then another great thing sort of in the light list is clamps. Now, if you've got a speed light, of course you can hold it in one hand and hold your camera in the other, but at some point you're probably going to have to go set your speed light up somewhere. So I will use things like this. I can clamp them to ceilings, I can clamp them to rafters. I can use this as well. This is great for the typical DJ shot. So for instance, I can go and set my speed light up, clamp it to a surface. I know it's not going to go anywhere. I can then step away from that environment. I can then shoot knowing that my light's going to stay very secure. And if you go through some of my work, you'll see that one of the sort of, very stereotypical types of images I would do would always be silhouetting the DJ, create a bit of sort of like moody light around them. And that's facilitating as opposed to leaving it on a surface. Because you're in an environment where there's going to be music, there's vibrations. You rest the speed light on a surface. Who's had a speed light drop off, fall off a surface, smash, break? There you go. These will save you. So again, it's all about like risk mitigation. And then triggers. Obviously, if you're going to use this wirelessly, you're going to need a trigger, and that will facilitate you to be sort of mobile and be a little bit more creative with what you're shooting. And then we move into the accessory side of it. Now, this is really important to me. We spend a lot of time exposed to a lot of loud music, so it's well worth grabbing yourself some of these. Now, some venues will give these away for free. Scoop loads of them, like absolutely loads of them, as much as you can fit in your bag and take them with you, as long as they're okay with it. Don't get in trouble, obviously. But it's well worth carrying them because they will protect your ears, because we're exposed to so much loud music. So in terms of looking after your health, if you burst your eardrums and get tinnitus, you can't go out and shoot in clubs. We don't want that. So look after your ears is an absolute priority. Aspirin, gum, I'll always carry those around with me. You're going to be in people's faces. People are going to be in your faces. There's going to be loud music. The last thing you want is any of that. So you can save both people by these little bits and bobs. Batteries and chargers. So if I go and shoot an event, so I still shoot music. I shoot for Mixmag and Time Out. And if I go and shoot an event, I'll take 2 batteries in my camera and I'll take 4 batteries as spare. Like, that's totally overkill, but it's all about risk mitigation. I'd rather have enough batteries to last me than have to go back and charge. And then what I also do is I have a little bum bag or a fanny pouch. I stick my batteries in there as well as my SD cards, and I'll leave my bag in the green room. So all of the stuff that's kind of consumable and sort of like can be depleted throughout the night, I've got access to it. So if I'm, you know, stuck in the corner of a club and something really exciting is going on and I'm running out of battery, I'm running out of room in my card, the last thing I want to go is to another area in the club. So having a little fanny pack with all your essentials is amazing. You can just whip out whatever you need. You're laughing at me. Whip out whatever you need.
I'm still on the battery thing.
This is that Sony thing. Yeah, I've known. Sony. No. So yeah, then got SD cards, and the great thing with SD cards, I tend to carry them in stuff like this, little bags. And I just carry them around me. And a really clever thing that I do for myself is, well, it's not very clever, it's just what I do, is I only ever use 16 gigabyte cards. Now, the reason I only ever use 16 gigabyte cards is it forces me. I know my camera shoots 85 megabytes an image. With a 16 gig card, I've probably got about 200, 300 images at a push. Now, what that forces me to do is when my card gets full, I have to go and change my card, because it's happened to me so many times. A 32 gig is corrupted on me, or 128 is corrupted on me with 600, 700 images, like, you know, 3 or 4 clubs worth of images gone. So by using a 16 gig card, I force my hand in terms of having to change. And then what I'll do is I'll put that card away. I'll then change over, use a fresh card. So if anything goes wrong with that card, I'm only losing a window of a couple of hours images, because at the end of the day, like, me being in the club is worth nothing really. It's the images I take away from the club. And if I can't take any images away, there's no worth. So I'll always force myself in terms of the images that I can use. And then marketing material is really essential. So business cards, Licklist, paraphernalia, all of that sort of stuff is super essential, because people need to know who you are and people need to feel comfortable with you, and also use it as an opportunity to market yourself. So always carry bits like that. ID as well is another one, and a shoulder strap. Everyone got one of these? Yeah, show of hands, yay, nay? Good. Well, if you don't have one of these, I'd highly recommend getting one. The reason being is you're in a club, it's very tight, people are going to knock you, they're going to bash you. By having this secured across you, you're going to be safe. So if someone knocks you, it's not going to fall to the floor, break your lens, break your camera, break your flash. You're going to be protected, which is pretty useful.
Before you move on,
yeah.
insurance.
Yes, yeah. Insurance. Who's got insurance in this room? For those of you that don't, have a little look around. Like, honestly, if I walked out of here today and a car sideswiped the back of my bag, or God knows whatever situation happened, touch wood, and I lost all my gear, I can't go and shoot tomorrow.
Also, with that in mind as well, you can't work on top of that with your liability insurance.
100%, yeah.
It's a legal requirement.
There you go, enough said. I don't even need to go into the crazy fictional scenario that I was going to go into to sell it. Yeah, you need the insurance to be able to cover yourself to work professionally. Any questions on kit? Go for it, shoot. Yeah, I do. So in terms of like my go-to kit, I carry a 16, an 85, a 50, and a 24-70. They're the lenses that I'll carry with me at all times. And then what I'll tend to do is I'll create myself a bit of a brief of the shot list that I need to get, and then I'll work out where the best place in those venues is in the venue to collect those images. So for instance, if I want to get candid stuff, I know I'm going to use the 85, come a little bit away out of the crowd. So then I kind of almost plan my shoot as I'm in there, if that makes sense. But yeah, I will change my lenses, of course.
Make it a little bit easier for...
Yep.
Yeah. I've got this tri-lens holder. You put it on your back and you can put 3 lenses on that. You don't have to like...
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
And I carry around 35, 85.
Spot on. And that's why it's great, all of us coming together as photographers, because we'll all have unique little spins and unique little processes of how we go about doing things. So the device that this guy is talking about is it sits on your belt. It allows you to swap your lenses. I'm not advanced as that. I've got them all in a fanny bag, like zapped around the front of me sort of thing. So you can, however you sort of solve the problem, it's very important that you do solve the problem. Cool, and then talking about settings, so I'm going to move on to settings, and this is some of my work that I've shot over the years. In terms of the settings we'll use, this one here, we're all familiar with it. Using rear shutter sync, dragging the shutter to allow the ambient light to move. So what we're doing in that scenario is we're using two sets of light. We're using the ambient light in the venue, and we're also using the flash. So the shutter speed is controlling the ambient, so this little swirl of light behind them, and then the flash is freezing the subject, and we have the flash at the end. This is a very commercial and usable image. If you don't know how to sort of collect it, it's well worth speaking to people on the WhatsApp group.
With that in mind, and obviously I understand the difference.
Yeah.
I think first currency is far more. You can find out what the client limit is going to look like a little bit easier because you know what your composition is of the subject before you start moving the camera. Whereas if you do second currency, you're trying to work out the motion first, but then you fail the composition second, the subject matter.
Spot on.
I think first currency personally is better on the basis that I shoot my subject and then I create movement afterwards.
Spot on. Well, there you go. So like, in terms of if you don't know how to produce an image like this, like Will's one of the guys that's on the list of top photographers here. Like in terms of his technical ability, the guy knows his stuff. So ask questions to be able to sort of learn how to broaden your portfolio of images that you can shoot. You then got your typical stuff, which is just a well-exposed, well-lit image of people having fun. Very simple to create. In terms of, I'm going to pick on someone here. Who would like to answer a question? Who's got the confidence to answer a question? No? Go for it. So if we were going to create, say for instance, a shot like this, how would you go about creating it? Like, what would be the settings you'd use? Yeah. Apologies about the projector.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, go, shoot. Round of applause as well. It's always like really terrifying in these situations. Yeah. Yeah.
It's fairly slow, slightly slow shutter speed, but it's not too slow. But again, depending on the club lights, there's a light in the background. Slightly shutter speeds.
Yeah.
Actually, isn't that wide.
Yeah.
Fairly
Standard. It's the stuff that we should know how to do sort of day in, day out. So yeah, spot on. Like you're very, very correct. Like not a massively fast shutter speed. We're dragging it a little bit, so we have a little bit of ambient movement in the background. We can see the movement of his hand. The light is capturing it. In terms of doing stuff like this again is basically that typical speed light setup behind the DJ. Shoot so the flash is firing into the DJ, and you create this amazing silhouette, which is really nice. That's obviously put in black and white. In the club scenario, you kind of want it to be as colourful and as bright as possible. Then we've got festival scenarios. So festival scenarios are relatively easy, or sort of areas where there's ambient light available. You're not using flash. You can shoot very relaxed at 1.4 or things like that to bring in as much light as possible. And then you've got stuff like this, which is the reliance on the ambient light in the club. So like there's no flash being used. This is just basically capturing the trailing light of the lasers. So again, we're going to have to drag the shutter slightly, open up our ISO so we can capture as much light as possible, and we're good to go. Is everyone comfortable with these types of images? Yeah, there's stuff that we do then. This is terrifying for me because I know you guys do it every weekend. I'm going to stand up here and say, oh yeah, this is how we do it. But these are the sort of images that, are very powerful and commercial, especially stuff like this. Clubs love stuff like that. People love tagging themselves and stuff like that. So it's very important to come away with images. Also, the opportunity to have a picture taken with celebrities. If you ever get that in your club environments, it's very important to capture those. And then, of course, the DJ shot and something a little bit creative to add a little bit of flair to the images. What I would suggest is everyone here shooting manual. Yeah, good. Anyone shooting aperture priority? No. Good, perfect. That's good.
Depends on the shot.
Depends on the shot. Yeah, good answer. Yeah, go for it.
Depends on what shot I'm taking first in the club. I'll use it.
Sure. Good call. I agree with that. And it's the same with like TTL. The only thing I'd be aware of is if you use aperture priority or TTL, you're basically handing over the decision making to the camera. In low light situations, the camera will always up the ISO and open the shutter speed. So you'll tend to get movement and you'll get noise. Now, when it comes to that post-production part of it again, if you've got noise and you've got loads of movement, it's very difficult to then use presets. So TTL can be good and aperture can be good in certain situations, but I would say is as much as you possibly can, have full control over the images. And again, it's just so you know what those images will look like when you get to that post-production part of it at the end. And that brings us to the lighting side of it. So in terms of lighting at clubs, there's sort of two types of light that you can use, or these are pinched from the Licklist website. Two scenarios of light here. You've got this one here, and you can see the light on the shadow, on the cheek, and it goes from dark to skin color really, really quickly. And then you've got this one here, where there's a gradual change. Now, in terms of flattering, this is always the more flattering light. And in order to do this, we have to create a larger light source. So we have to look at using things like this, or bouncing the light off the ceiling, or bouncing the light off of a surface, just to create that softer light. And the reason being is it's just a more commercially usable image. It's softer, people like it. Shadows such as this are never flattering. Go for it, shoot.
I want to say something regarding this,
Go on.
because I find this massively annoying at times, especially when anyone from venues that I have as a private venue. A lot of people kind of, end up going, I want to use off-camera flash, and when you use off-camera flash a lot of the time, you're using flash in a way whereby, yeah, okay, you might want to create shadow, but a lot of people for this kind of work, as a client perspective, don't want the shadow, so they want, realistically speaking, if you think about it, they want on-camera flash used correctly to create a soft light source, which is what sells as a, as a business to like the end user or whatever you want to call it. But basically, hard light, which is typically off camera, is always going to not look that good. It's going to look grungy. If that's your client, it's fine, but typically in this environment, it's not.
Yeah, 100% agree. And it goes back to what was said earlier about the brief. If you're briefed to shoot women in red dresses, you shoot women in red dress. Like, our brief a lot of the time is to make clubs look attractive, make people in clubs look attractive. That's always going to be the more sellable image. So like Kevin said, like, it's very important that this is the focus. And in order to do that, like, a little bit of understanding of light. And one of the best ways to do it is just experiment with your flash. Get onto YouTube, watch some videos. All of that will help you understand how to better use the light. But we're always looking for a softer version of light as opposed to the harder version. Some venues may ask for that. Shoot, go for it.
Can I just
Yeah.
jump into that, because you said like YouTube videos and everything. I think like first-hand experience is very important. So if you shoot a club and you want to experiment, leave it as the last.
Yeah.
Or come earlier, or do it in between. Do your shoot house.
Yeah, don't rock up like 10 minutes late and then experiment for 15 minutes and then go and get the images you're meant to get. Like, turn up on time, all the time. Get the images that you've been briefed to get. If you've got a bit of downtime afterwards and you fancy experimenting and broadening your portfolio, then yeah, start experimenting, because again, it's all about delivering what the brief says. And one of the things I'll touch on as well is I've shot sort of like music, I've shot nightclubs, I've gone off and shot like advertising stuff. At all spectrums of photography, the brief is the brief. It doesn't matter if it's in a nightclub, whether you're shooting trainers, whether you're shooting mobile phones, whether you're shooting venues, the brief is the brief. If someone says to me, right, Luke, we want the focus to be on the color of this, and I turn up and I focus on the shape of it, that's not what I've been briefed on. It's exactly the same with event work. Always make sure you read the brief, take yourself onto the club's website and look at the previous portfolio of work, get an idea of like what's going on, what the feel is, what the look is, and then use that as your benchmark to go and take those images. In some clubs, especially, some of the more edgy clubs that are more sort of like house and techno based, they're probably going to want to go for this look. This is more sellable to that environment. But in sort of like, typical clubbing environments where people are going dressed up and whatnot, they want to look good in the images, and Licklist want to be able to present that as images to the clients, of course, because it's totally sellable. Any questions on that? Yeah, shoot, man, go for it.
Can I ask you a personal question?
It depends how personal it is, mate. Like, I'm
But the way I do, and
Yeah.
you do the same thing, not
Sure.
like,
I don't know where this is going now, mate.
Do you ever show the images to the people you shoot? And the camera to them?
What, in terms of a club environment?
So if you go and shoot in the club, take a picture, you move on, or you show, okay, you have to do this.
So if they are, I've kind of like I have a free strike rule. So if I take a picture and they want to see it, I'll show them. And they say, oh no, it's no good, I want to take another one. I'll take another one and I'll do it. On the third time, like, you have to, the thing is, everyone wants to be an Instagram model this day, especially in clubs, and they've got their own personal photographer in front of them for 5 minutes. They're going to absolutely abuse it. So unless you're very stern in terms of what you do and don't offer them, they're going to keep abusing it. So of course it's good to be nice, But in terms of being nice, it's always better to be nicer to the person that's paying you than the person that's just going to use your images on Instagram. So I would always use a 3 strike rule. Just make sure, like, yeah, show it, and then move away. Yeah, tap my screen. That's a really good trick. I'm going to use it. So then that takes us nicely onto the personal. Oh, I think I've disconnected. Oh, there we go. No, we're good. The personal brand bit. This is really, really, really important as a nightclub photographer. Personal brand is so important, not just in terms of being a nightclub photographer, in terms of any photography in any business. You know, it's so important to be well dressed and branded. Like, yes, admittedly, I dress quite scruffy, but I shoot a lot of like dance music and stuff like that. It's kind of like it fits with the industry, so it's the look I go for. So it's always important to dress in that environment. If you're turning up as an official person on official business for an official company like Licklist, you wear the branding. Of course, it's going to help with the social compliance element of being able to get in and get what you need. So it's very important to be well presented. Clean and smelling good. Like, you're going to be in a club environment. I've got to be completely honest. If I've shot at a club for 4 or 5 hours and I'm starting to kick up a bit of a stink, carrying aerosol is amazing, because the last thing you want is like these guys picking up an email being like, oh, it was great pictures, but it stunk. Like, you don't want that. So it's really important to take these factors in, because, you know, if that happens, the probability of you coming back to that club, let's say, oh no, we'll use another photographer. It's just these little elements that just kind of like refine the whole package, which will guarantee you more work going forward. Always smile. Always make a point of introducing yourself to people. So, you know, rock up. When you're in a club, you can always tell who's important. Like, it's always very easy to identify the guy that's important, either the promoter or the guy that owns it or the guy that's running the door. Make a point of introducing yourself to every single one of them. Let them know who you are all the time. So then the next time you go back, there you go, come through, done. Skip the queue. You're not messing around with bouncers, searching your bag, doing that sort of nonsense. I want to get in and take pictures. The easier you can make that for everybody that's associated in the process, the faster you can go and take pictures. So these are all sort of very important subjects. Engage your subject. Don't be creepy. So it's all about like engaging your subject, getting them to smile, getting them to be nice. We've all been in that situation where there's an absolute 10 in front of you and you're like, oh, you know, don't overstep the mark. Like, you're there on official business. You know, take the images you need to take and then come away from it. Don't be creepy. No one likes a creep like this guy. Encourage personality. So when you are shooting people, try to get their personality to come out. You know, if you've got a group of girls and you've got one that's been a little bit shy, you know, be encouraging to their personality to come out, because in terms of what you're trying to do, it's always about the problem you're trying to solve. The problem you're trying to solve is this club wants more people to come back next time. If there's an image of 4 girls and one of them's like, oh, it's not a great image. So you guys have got to bring that to life.
I find one really easy thing to do as well is if someone's kind of looking a little bit miserable, kind of point them out and like, just give us a smile, you know, for the next one. And then everyone has a laugh.
Yeah.
And then everyone on the next shot is probably getting.
So I'm going to try one. So one I always use, and this always works, is I'll just lean into someone and say, what was the last thing that made you laugh? I guarantee every single person will think about the last thing that made them laugh, and you'll get a little laugh. And that's a great way to just spark a bit of their character. Just go, you know, what was the last thing that made you laugh? They'll then laugh, step back, take the images you need. It's a sellable image as opposed to like a cringy one as such. Be aware of characters. When you're in a club environment, there's always going to be those people that want the attention. They want to stand out. Be aware of those people. You know, if it's someone who's like a Z-list celebrity and it's going to help the club promote themselves at a later date, of course, go and capture that, because they're the kind of images they want. Don't spend all night giving them their own personal shoot, but those images are super important to the environment, and just to bring out the vibrance and the type of people that go to those environments. Because of course, you know, you've got these clubs, you've got all these different people from all different walks of life. You're trying to capture that and encourage those people from outside to come and experience the same. Look for lookers, like we said, you know, look for attractive people to make the images attractive, and look for strong images. Like, try to be artistic in what you do. Try to put your stamp on everything you do within the brief. I think that's really important. And then candid, not creepy. Always remember that. Candid, not creepy. Very important. And then post-production. I spoke a little bit about this before, and I'll be really sort of relatively quick on this. As a photographer, the most important thing you can do is getting it right in camera. If you can get it right in camera, you don't have to be sat in front of a computer. When I first started shooting at Unit 17, I went in there on a Sony Alpha 58 on an 1855 lens. I had no post-production software whatsoever. I had a 4 gig memory card. I could only store about 200 pictures on there. I had to sort of go back to my laptop, put the images on, and then I edited them all one by one in an app called Pixlr, because I didn't have post-production software. And it was like I shot on a Saturday night and I didn't get the images to them till the following Saturday. It was shocking. And again, it's about like refining that process. You know, what I would tend to do now if I shoot an event, especially if it's for publication or something like that, regardless of the time I get in, I will edit that night. Whether I get in at 6 o'clock, 7 o'clock, 8 o'clock, 9 o'clock, I create a really good routine. I edit my images then and there, get them done. So I can go to sleep, I can wake up the next day. There's nothing worse than waking up on a Sunday at like 2:15 thinking, oh God, I've got to get these images over to the client, and it's like all a mad panic and rush. So grab yourself a Red Bull or whatever it is, a coffee, get the images done on the night that you've done them. Because I think you're very in tune with what's going on. You know what was happening at night, you've got a feel for it, that energy is still there. So kind of get that into the workflow and get it done as quick as possible. I always think, so one of the things I've done throughout my career is I always kind of take the approach of be the first every time. So one of the things I used to do is when I got into the environment of shooting dance music, I would go to a club, I'd shoot all the DJs, I would then edit the pictures on site, send all of the images to the DJs with my social media handle. I'd be like, oh yeah, some images of you, can you share it on social media? Before I'd left the club, these DJs were all sharing images of my pictures. So that's how I managed to build up a good social following. And I think that's really important for you guys. Like when you go to a club, beat all of these guys in this room, like be the first person to get your images done. So tomorrow you can relax, like just get the work out of the way, speed up the workflow. So in terms of like how I would create my workflow, shoot, import, which is getting the information into the computer so you can edit it, cull, which is throwing away the nipples, the boobs, all that sort of stuff, like getting rid of that nonsense. Put your presets on, make sure your presets fit, that's the adjustment, and then export and then share. And throughout my whole career, I've used that same process. Even if I go off and shoot, you know, commercial stuff, like that's the process I use. It's a very simple process and will sort of like pay dividends long term. And that is all I've got to say. So thank you ever so much for your time. I really, really, really appreciate it. Hopefully it was useful. Does anyone